Hello and welcome to another edition of Focus on Morris County. I'm Joe Garifo, Public Information Officer for the Morris County Government. Focus on Morris County is a program that's designed to keep us up to date on the many actions being taken by the Morris County Board of Freeholders. And the show is also designed to shed some light on various aspects of Morris County government. For example, on this segment of the program, we are going to learn about the Morris County Juvenile Detention Center. And here to tell us about it are my guests. First, to my left is Tom Polio. Tom is the Director of Juvenile Facilities here in Morris County. And Tom is joined by Anthony Maglio. Anthony is the Deputy Director, and he is also the Chief Juvenile Detention Officer at the Juvenile Detention Center. Folks, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Tom, I want to start with you. For our viewers who may not be familiar with the Juvenile Detention Center, just give us a little overview of it, what it is and who it's for.
Well, the Juvenile Detention Center is a secure facility. That means that it's a lockdown type of facility for kids in custody. It's for juveniles from ages basically from 10 years old on up to 20 years old, depending on when they've come into the juvenile justice system. And these are kids that are charged with crimes that, if committed by an adult, would be at least a third-degree crime or higher, resulting in a 5-year prison sentence if they were an adult. That wouldn't happen as a juvenile.
Is it a co-ed facility?
Yes, it is.
How many juveniles can the detention center hold at one time?
Our capacity, approved capacity, is 42 residents. However, we generally run at about 20 to 25 residents.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, there are two juvenile facilities here in Morris County that are operated, by the way, by the Morris County Department of Human Services, the Juvenile Detention Center, and there's also a youth shelter. Now, Tom, what is the difference between the two?
Well, the youth shelter, it differs because it's a not secure facility. In other words, the residents that are placed there are placed either by an agency like DIFUS or by the probation court, and they're charged with either crimes that are of a 4th degree or less, or they're in a situation at home where it warrants that they not be living in their home setting or looking for services, waiting services for them, such as a rehabilitation center or other service.
When we're talking about the Juvenile Detention Center, Tom, talk a little bit about the staff. How many people do you have staffing the facility, and what are some of their responsibilities?
Well, in total, we have 40 people working at the facility. We include the medical aspect of it, a nurse full-time and some part-time nurses, and we have outside contracts for doctors to come in and look at the welfare of the residents. We have a social services component which sees to their mental health needs, and if there are specific mental health issues that the residents would need, direct that service toward those residents. We also have a educational component at the facility, and that's our most, I think, important aspect of the detention center, is above keeping the kids safe and secure during their stay, is the educational component.
When you say during their stay, what is the typical length of stay for a juvenile at the detention facility?
Well, our average length of stay is about 22 days. However, we have experienced much longer stays depending on the seriousness of the crime and whether the crime is going to be prosecuted at in an adult facility eventually, or through the process of courts determining where that crime is going to be heard.
Okay. Now, you talked about the educational component of the juvenile detention facility. Elaborate on that a little bit. What are some of the areas that the educational component covers? Is it like they're going to a public school?
Yes, it is. In fact, we have a full-time teacher and 5 part-time teachers on staff at the facility. We run classes 220 days a year, different from the regular school districts in that we run all summer long as part of our program. It's a mandated program by the state, and all the credits that they earn in our facility are credited toward their home school districts. So we have even graduated several residents per year from our facility through their home district.
Now, Tony, I want to turn to you because I know that one of the programs operating in the Morris County Juvenile Detention Center is something called Project Phoenix. What can you tell us about this particular program?
Well, Project Phoenix is an excellent, detailed gang intervention, gang prevention program. The program was actually put together by the Juvenile Justice Commission, a joint venture with the New Jersey State Department of Education. The curriculum meets all of the standards. The classes are held 45 minutes. We usually have 6 to 8 residents in a class. The instructors are our own JDO instructors, our officers, along with some of the social workers that have been trained by the state, over 30 hours worth of the initial training, and then updated each year. They actually present the workshops, the curriculum to the residents. And it's to focus on the residents, the juveniles, we refer to them as residents, making better choices once they leave our facility. Because that's the problem. They're going back into their old neighborhoods, their schools. There's an element there that probably they know very well, but now maybe want to avoid. So these programs and the workshop, the exercises, the videos that are made available, we give them some information, some ways of avoiding getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And yes, you do say hello, you do acknowledge the people, but you don't have to get involved with them. And that's what the program tries to do. Now, it's been very successful. It's across the nation in many states, at schools, detention centers. There's over, in some areas, 50% less residents return. So there is some good news on that end with the program. And they keep updating it. It was initiated back in 1996. But every year it's updated. We do have the bullying aspect on it now, which is a very big problem today in the schools. The cyber bullying, the school bullying. It's much different than when we were all children in school.
Yeah.
It could be very vicious and very violent these days. So part of the program, we get into the bullying. Some of these kids have been bullied. We show them the ways maybe to avoid it. And many of them were the kids doing the bullying.
Yeah.
And we try to show them, well, what would happen to your sister or your younger brother if they were treated like this.
Now, Tony, you're also involved in another program which I have found over the last couple of years to be fascinating. It involves horses and the Juvenile Detention Center and the residents of the Juvenile Detention Center. It's an equine assisted learning program.
Yes.
How do the horses help the residents in a learning program?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's not a riding program. Right from the get-go, I'll let you know
Okay.
that. They don't get on the horses. We're not teaching them horsemanship. We do go into some of the horse behavior, of course, their anatomy, that type of thing. But the idea of the program is to enhance their skills with communication, their confidence, their self-esteem. Now, how do we do that? Well, many of these kids are from the inner cities, never been up to a horse in probably their whole life, maybe seen them from a distance or on TV. So now you have a big 1,200-pound animal that you're going to be asked to approach, halter, and lead through a designated course. Now, it's a little apprehensive in the beginning, but to see a kid or a resident, one of these juveniles, these big tough juveniles, at least that's what they like to display, come up nervously on the horse and be uncomfortable for a while, but then overcome the fear and actually go through the course successfully, does wonders with their confidence. Younger kids that may be smaller built, they realize, you know, I don't need a gang member to protect me. I just moved this 1,200-pound horse around that I've never been up to before in my life. So the confidence and the self-esteem comes in there. And these are the skills that we try to enhance there. I'll give you a very quick example. We had a 16-year-old boy, anger management. That's why he was in our center. Very serious things had gone down, unfortunately. He wrote in his evaluation that he found by approaching the horse more calmly, he got to be able to halter it and lead it through the course. Maybe if he approaches people more calmly, they'll listen to him and perhaps do what he's requesting. Now that to me was a light bulb that lit up in this kid's head.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious because working with horses, they mirror us, they mirror humans. If you're being aggressive, they're going to return that. If you're being calm and kind, they will return that. And because of their size, it's right in front of you. So it's a learning experience that's right there. They don't have to really go back and study it from a book.
Yeah.
It happened. And I get a pleasure working with these residents, with the horses. I think they bring home a lot of good from it.
And we should mention now, these are your horses? You
Yes.
are a horseman, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I've been with horses all my life.
Okay.
These horses are retired show and competition horses that I bring down.
Okay.
You want to work with the right animals, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, but we do that. It's no expense to the county.
Okay.
It's one of my volunteer programs, and I'm happy to do it.
Tom, I want to get back to you because I know that Morris County has relationships or agreements with several other counties in terms of utilizing the Juvenile Detention Center. What can you tell us about those agreements?
Well, what we've done is we've contracted with Hunterdon, Warren, and Sussex counties to take their kids to offset the cost of running our facility. So they have either previously closed down their facilities or have never had a facility, and we've taken their kids in for a fee, and we've basically give them the same course that our Morris County residents go through here.
So this benefits not only Morris County in terms of offsetting costs, but it also benefits the other counties as well.
Yes, it's a good program. It's been recognized by the state actually 3 years in a row consecutively as having no violations of any of the standards set forth by the Juvenile Justice Commission.
Now, is there a similar, or are there similar agreements in place between Morris County and the youth shelter?
Yes, we have similar agreements with those counties also. They've closed either their shelters or hadn't had a shelter, and it's like a one-stop shop, so to speak, because it's, quite often residents that leave our facility waiting a program may go to the shelter and wait for the program bed to become available for them. So it works out very nicely with the various counties going right from our detention center to our shelter.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you both very much for being with us and just giving us a little overview of the Morris County Juvenile Detention Center, Tom Polio and Anthony Maglio. Now, if you would like to have more information about the Juvenile Detention Center, you can contact either one of these gentlemen by giving them a call at 973-285-2959, the Morris County Juvenile Detention Center, 973-285-2959. Now, if you have a question about Morris County government that you would like to have answered, you can call the Morris County Freeholders Office, and that telephone number is 973-285-6010. You may also visit the county government on the web at morriscountynj.gov, and once you access the website, please feel free to sign up for Morris Connections, Morris County's electronic newsletter, and you can also like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can also check out Morris County's other social media, which we use to help keep you up to date on your county government. I'm Joe Garifo. Thank you for being with us. Don't go away, though, because we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm John Pecoraro, surrogate of Morris County. If a loved one passes away and you need to transfer property to their heirs, you must come to the surrogate's court. This is true even if the deceased did not have a will. This process is known as probate. Now, probate in New Jersey is not overly complicated, and my staff is available to assist you. If you have any questions, please call my office at 973-285-6500 or visit our website at morrissurrogate.com.
Welcome back to Focus on Morris County. I'm Joe Garifo, and on this segment of the program, we are going to focus on a newly developed Morris County Cultural Resources Inventory web application. And here to tell us about that web application is my guest. She is Jan Williams, and Jan is the Cultural Resources and Historic Specialist in the Morris County Department of Planning and Development. Jan, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Jan, before we get to the web application itself, can you just tell us about your position as Cultural Resources and Historic Specialist and some of the responsibilities of that position?
Well, I am basically a Jan of all trades. Historically speaking, I do research assistance for various county departments or from the public sector. I also keep a history of burial sites in Morris County of the freeholders prior, running from 18th century to 21st century. And I also keep up on Morris County streets, when they were opened, who they were named in honor of, etc. So it's a full day.
Now, speaking of streets and who they were named after, I understand that, and as an example of your work, recently officials in the town of Morristown renamed a street in honor of an individual. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's my fortune to have a job where I can actually be out in the field nearly every day. And initial field work at Bethel AME Church in Morristown, it's obvious that the building is not historic yet. Basic age is 50 years. They're not going to be eligible historically for 12 more years. But I started the next best thing. If you can't find the age in the wood, you look in the names. And their first pastor was actually an escaped slave from Virginia. His name was Willis Nasry, and lo and behold, he's a recognized conductor on the Underground Railroad. He founded the British Methodist Episcopal Church in Canada. He's recognized in the Washington Cathedral, the same cathedral where Frederick Douglass and Rosa Parks had their funerals. But he was the first pastor at Bethel AME. And so when I brought this research to the congregation, they were just overjoyed and had it in their mind. We've got to recognize it, and it's preserving a legacy in a historic time period in Morris County. So Center Street, no longer, it's Bishop Nasry Way.
Well, that's wonderful.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, okay, so now let's get back to this web application, the Cultural Resources Inventory web application. Now, before there was a web application, I assume there must have been some kind of a cultural resources survey or inventory. Talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Well, it was the backbone of the data that I used is it was published in 1986, and I also incorporated other surveys such as the burial sites, published 1976, Morris County Master Plan, Historic Pres Element, published in 1976. So these were obviously needed updating, but that was the basis of that research, and it was books, it was inaccessible, you had to go out of your way to check them out of the library, etc.
So now we have a web application. What does this enable someone to do?
It'll do just about anything but cook your dinner. Historically speaking, you can, as an individual citizen, you can go in and research your own house. What history does it have? Or check my facts and point out my errors or omissions. I'm always happy to do that, but that's it. It's a living research document, and you have access to it 24 hours, 7 days a week at your leisure. As an individual citizen, you can search by architectural style. If you're a Tudor Revival style, you can find historic Tudor Revivals mapped to date everywhere in Morris County, and you can further enhance that research to only your town or only your street. So it's a pretty dynamic tool.
Now, besides architecture, which you just mentioned, what are some of the other areas or topics that you can search for or search on?
Well, for the professionals, you can look at highlands areas that are mapped to date. You can either search by planning or preservation. You may search by demolished or removed out of the county, moved into the county. It's just a myriad of combinations, and if the viewer is the first time they're logging on, don't be discouraged by the amount of data you can search by and combine. Ignore everything, look what you're searching for, and there it is.
So then someone who is computer challenged, for example, like myself.
And myself.
we should have no problem going up there and doing a search and finding the information that we're looking for?
Absolutely not. There's a document in there in the frequently asked questions section, and there's a how to navigate, and typically it's 2 or 3 times reviewing that data, and people are proficient, and it's fantastic. But I would like to point out too, for people who roll their eyes at history, or I understand fully that maybe history to me isn't the same interest for you. So I've developed a Morris County theme. Suppose you're a sports enthusiast. You care nothing about the American Revolution or industrial era. you were only interested in sports. Under Morris County themes, I've tried to quell out a lot of the interest-specific enthusiasts, particularly the local lovers or the railroad enthusiasts.
Okay.
They're interested only in railroads. They can click on railroads and get every single historic railroad structure mapped to date.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this web application was originally designed for use by some of the county departments and divisions, like Historic Preservation, like the Heritage Commission. But now it's being used in a much wider scope, correct?
Indeed, yes, and I'm very gratified with that. I respect my co-department's challenges and working tenants that they have to deal with, so they can actually view the historic resource, and I can provide them with basic data and a professional report in a second. Community development, a lot of the projects they work on, they're actually structures that are on the historic survey. So I provide them with the basic data. Morris County Site Review, they're fantastic. They invite me in to sit in on meetings with developers or propose projects they know of, not to lend an opinion or critique, etc., but just to sit and listen, and that's a golden opportunity. We share information constantly.
Now, you've been going out, I understand, to municipalities, to libraries, training librarians in the use of this application. Why have you been going out into the field, so to speak?
Well, the first the group of people I wanted to reach out to are the librarians. They are the first stop usually in a research quest. And I thought it imperative they be trained first, and I must extend compliments and gratitude to Jefferson. They not only were trained on it, but then they held their own training for their patrons. So if they need some quick research material, etc., they can better help their clients or their patrons.
Yeah. Now, what about municipal departments of government or departments of municipal government, for example? Are you getting involved, or do you plan to get involved with them as well?
Yes, indeed, I do. I had another specialized training session, and a municipal engineer showed up, and also the head archaeologist for Picatinny Arsenal. And they were mighty impressed, and they really want a piece of it.
Now, if I find the information that I'm looking for, maybe it's a report, maybe it's a plot or a map, is the information that I find able to be printed out? Can I do that?
It absolutely is. And not only that, we offer you very professional reports that contain cross-references with the Historic American Building Survey or the state or national registers, municipal master plans, their historic preservation elements. But we also offer you state plane coordinates. We offer latitudes and longitudes, just the basic data that it could take you several hours to get. So it's there.
Now, you mentioned that it's been well received by the librarians and by the county employees, county officials. What about the public? What kind of a response have you had from the general public, folks who have learned about the application? What are their thoughts?
The crowd goes wild. They go wild every time it's presented, and even if they're not computer savvy, and then a few quick lessons, and they can master it, and it's great pride, and it instills their thrills. But it's amazing to me every day when I just see the vested interest that the Morris County citizen has vested in their history. They are passionate about it, and they are critical, and they will let you know when you do wrong or right, and we're doing right so far.
Are there any plans in the works to, I don't know, I mean, usually when something comes out and it's new, you need to tweak it, so to speak. Are you finding that every so often, some improvements need to be made, or do you have any improvements that are planned for the future for the application? Indeed,
yes. We always have our eyes 15 years down the road, because that's what Morris County government does. We're very forward thinking. So in the additional rollouts, we are going to add a couple of additional critical features now we're seeing. So yes, indeed.
What is and I know we've been talking about this this application, but I guess I should really ask you, what is the easiest way for someone at home to access this application? Can they go up onto the department's website and get it from there?
Correct. www.morrisplanning.org, and they can scroll to the left and hit Cultural Resource Inventory. And while they're there, you know, scroll down, look at the ongoing projects, and if it may take a moment to thank the veterans of Morris County for their service, I especially urge them to look at the street histories, make sure I've captured every street named after a veteran. I take that seriously. But then they can also read the frequently asked questions and learn the how to navigate.
Now, I don't want to digress from the web application, but when you do go up onto the full website for the Department of Planning and Development, you mentioned a couple of other categories that when you scroll down you will be able to access. What are some of those?
Those would be the frequently asked questions, telling you how to get involved or how to contact me.
I think you also mentioned burial sites,
yes,
cemeteries.
the Morris County burial sites, and that's actually fantastic. We have just discovered a new unmarked cemetery in Morris County.
Really?
Yes, a few days ago, as a matter of fact. So it sometimes a cemetery, that's the only remnants we have of Morris County history, and when we capture a cemetery, we can preserve also the history of that community or those citizens. So it's quite a thrill to discover that.
Well, Jan Williams, I want to thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Telling us about this brand new web application, the Morris County Cultural Resources Inventory web application. And again, let me give you that information for the Morris County Department of Planning and Development. The web address is morrisplanning.org. Check out the website and you'll be able to get to the inventory as well. Now, if you have a question about Morris County government that you would like to have answered, you can call the Morris County Freeholders Office at 973-285-6010. You may also visit the county government's website at morriscountynj.gov. And while you're there, why not sign up for the county government's electronic newsletter, Morris County Connections, to keep you up to date on your Morris County government. And while you're also there, why don't you check out our Facebook and Twitter pages, YouTube, Scribd, and if you like to browse through photographs, check out our Flickr photo stream. I'm Joe Garifo. I want to thank you very much for being with us and invite you to tune in again next week at this time for another edition of Focus on Morris County.